Hello, and welcome to the online public meeting for the Bangerter and 134th South State Environmental Study, or SES. Tonight, you'll hear from members of the environmental study team about the initial phase of the SES at this location, what we'll be looking at throughout this study, and how you can provide input to help inform the process. We'll be getting started with this presentation in just a few minutes. We'd like to give people a chance to join before we begin. The presentation itself will take roughly 20 minutes, and we'll use the remaining time to address any questions. We have a group of panelists from our study team on the line and ready to answer any of your questions about this environmental study. You'll see a Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. As we go through the presentation, feel free to submit questions for our team to address verbally when the presentation is complete. A few things to note. Everyone in the meeting will be able to see the questions submitted. You can also like someone else's questions by using the thumbs up icon to that question. Each like moves that question up on the list. When we get to the Q&A portion of the meeting, our moderators will start with the questions that have the most likes. We're going to wait just a few moments and begin as we wait for more attendees to join us. Okay, it is now 6:05, and let me go over the Q&A portion of this meeting. You will be unable to submit your questions verbally, but you'll see a Q&A button on the bottom of your Zoom screen. And as we go through the presentation, feel free to submit questions for our team to address verbally when the presentation is complete. Now, a few things to note. Everyone in the meeting will be able to see the questions submitted. You can also like someone else's question by using the thumbs up icon. next to that question. Each like moves that question up on the list. When we get to the Q&A portion of the meeting, our moderators will start with the questions that have the most likes. It's now 6:05 and we are going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to pass things over to Brian Allen with Udot and Project Manager for this effort.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Allen. I'm the Udot Project Manager overseeing the Bangerter Highway Environmental Studies. So I'm joined here with Tyler. I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tyler Allen with Udot Environmental, and I'm helping to oversee the Bangerter Environmental Studies.
I'm sure many, if not all of you, are well acquainted with the progress that has been made on Bangerter Highway over the past 10 years. Continuing on that progress, Udot has recently started multiple state environmental studies to evaluate converting all the remaining signalized intersections on Bangerter Highway to freeway-style interchanges. Tonight's meeting will focus on Bangerter and 134th South. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to introduce the study and gather feedback about overall transportation needs and environmental issues that should be considered as we move through the process. The input received during these meetings will help the team develop and refine the preferred design concept that will be made available for comment later in the study process. Tonight's online meeting and tomorrow's in-person meeting will present the same information and material. A recording of tonight's online meeting will be made available on the study website tomorrow for anyone who may want to review it or share it with others.
So as has been said, the study here is a state environmental study. For 134th South and Bangerter Highway, we are completing this document the same as we have for the other Bangerter interchanges that you've seen completed up and down the corridor. Udot completes an environmental study for all of our projects. The state environmental study means that it was a state-funded project, no federal funds involved. The environmental process begins so that we can inform decision makers of impacts and all the information that they need to be able to make their best decisions moving forward. The beginning of the process is the scoping phase. That's where we are right now. During the scoping phase, we initiate agency coordination, public involvement efforts, reach out to residences and businesses in the area, where we gather information about the resources, the traffic patterns, the needs of the individuals in the area, and that helps to inform our study goals. The scoping process is followed by the development of concepts and designs that we help to screen against the study goals. The design concepts are screened against things such as the study goals, the impact to the natural and built environments. What that means is things such as the soils, the water quality, as well as residences and businesses. Humans are part of the environment, so we take that into account as well. And then the other thing that's screened against is engineering considerations, meaning if it's feasible, if it can actually be built, and the costs. Once a design has been selected as the preferred design, it moves forward and is further evaluated in the environmental document. And we bring it forward as the draft state environmental study. At that point, we have another public hearing. We reach back out to all of you, and we ask for more input about that design. We'll have a lot more answers as well at that point about things like the noise and the air quality, or impacts to residences in particular. Tonight's meeting is the very first point of contact, and you'll expect to see from our team a lot more contact going forward, or you can visit our website, which is udot.utah.gov/Bangerter13400 South, and sign up for updates if you haven't already, to make sure you're receiving the latest and best information. As always, please feel free to reach out to our team at any point throughout the study. That's why we're having these meetings.
The purpose of this project is to improve safety and increase mobility in the area. The current scope is to replace the traffic signal at 134 South with a freeway-style interchange. So this improvement will reduce travel times on Bangerter Highway and 134 South. In addition, it will reduce the number and the severity of crashes by eliminating high-speed conflict points. It's no secret that Utah is growing. By 2050, the design year for this project, traffic is expected to double on Bangerter Highway from the current rate of 60,000 cars per day to 120,000 cars per day. Without major improvements, projections show that delays will increase by nearly 4 times the current condition.
This is our study area for the environmental document. It shows the limits of what we're looking at for environmental impacts related to this project. It's important to note on this that these lines are not set in stone. They're variable depending on the resource that we're looking at and also according to the designs that we look at. So they may change during the course of the study, but it does give you a good idea of where we are and what we're looking at. Now, don't worry about this as well, because it doesn't mean that everything within those areas is going to be ripped up for this interchange. Now, it just shows that things such as noise or air quality, those sort of resources are going to be looked at in this boundary. We like to make sure we're covering all of our bases and looking at all impacts.
So this slide shows the project schedule and accompanying milestones. The orange items represent project environmental milestones and the gray public coordination milestones. But as Tyler mentioned, you can always get in touch with the project team through the hotline, website, email, or even traditional mail at any time. So we are currently on the left side of this chart conducting a public open house online right now, in person tomorrow, to better inform our concept development. So once a design has been selected, Udot will hold neighborhood meetings to notify impacted residents and businesses and discuss the path forward. The selected design concept will then be presented to the public for review and comment early next year at a formal public hearing. Udot will then review and respond to public comments and may adjust the design as needed. The state environmental study will then be finalized. The project will then move into contractor procurement in 2022 and right-of-way acquisition. Construction is scheduled to start in the summer of 2023 and typically takes 1.5 to 2 years to complete. One unique feature of this intersection is the pedestrian crossing over Bangerter. There is high probability the structure will be impacted. As part of the study, our team will look at the best ways to accommodate pedestrians in the future. We will look at various options, such as relocating the crossing to another location on Bangerter Highway, or even moving the crossing to 134 South instead of Bangerter Highway. Overall, our goal with this crossing is to ensure kids, bicyclists, and other pedestrians travel safely. We're working closely with local schools, parents, and the Jordan School District to figure out the best option. This is another area where we'd love to hear your feedback. How do you and other members of your community use the bridge? Please let us know. Possible solutions. We are very early, as we've been discussing, in the stage of this environmental study, but we're hoping to hear what is important to you to help us determine what solution makes the most sense. Here are some possible interchange concepts that our team plans to investigate as we move forward with the study. A tight diamond interchange, a single point urban interchange. This type of interchange is the most common in urban areas and is a type of interchange used at other Bangerter locations. We'll also be evaluating, in partnership with Riverton City, if Bangerter Highway will go over 134 South or under 134 South.
Now that you've heard what we are looking for, please let us know what you think. We have a variety of outreach channels set up so that you can provide feedback, and we welcome input throughout the entire study process. We do, however, have our first of a couple of formal comment periods, which will open now through July 28th. What that means is that any comment we receive during this period will be included in the final environmental document. We will look at it as a project team and try to incorporate what we can. There will be another chance to provide formal input later on in the study once we have a preferred concept, and you can look at the actual preferred concept, provide comments then, and we can see what we can incorporate as well. So please call, email, visit our website, mail us a comment form, however you would like to approach us, and tell us how you use these roads. Do you walk or drive in the area? Do you use that pedestrian bridge? We want to know about this. We are also looking for information about potential environmental considerations that we might not have noticed. We would like to address these as much as we can throughout the process. We're looking for any and all types of feedback so we can make sure that the solution we develop is right for this area.
Thank you so much for that information, Brian and Tyler. We've been keeping an eye on the questions coming in, and now that we've finished up with the presentation, we want to jump right into the Q&A portion of the meeting. And just as a notice, questions submitted will not be considered as a formal public comment. As a reminder, you're unable to ask questions verbally during this meeting. You may submit any questions you'd like answered via the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. The thumbs up icon next to each question moves that question up the list and tells us you'd like that question answered as well. We'll try and get through as many questions as we can before the meeting ends at 7 p.m. If we are unable to get to your question, please reach out via our hotline, email, or website, and we will make sure that you get an answer. We also have an in-person meeting tomorrow night from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at South Hills Middle School, where we'll have this same information along with members of the study team in person to answer any questions you may have. So we are going to go into the Q&A section, and we have our first question from Jason. Will you be adding, or from Jason to Tyler, will you be adding a sound wall to the Bangerter near 134th South between 3600 West and the fish pond?
And that's a good question. And I've seen that a lot of these questions come up with noise. The answer right now is we don't know. We have to wait until we know the design of the new roadway. And then we go through a process of the noise study, which is understanding the design, doing evaluation of the current noise situation in the area, running models for the potential change in noise, and then we establish where noise walls may be both reasonable and feasible. At that point, balloting would take place, and then the residences would have an opportunity to vote yes or no on those noise walls that were proposed. But the short answer is right now we just don't know. That's understanding the needs in the area is what we're here for.
Okay. We have a question here from Eric. This will be for Brian Allen. Will there be an option to have a ramp from the northbound Bangerter to 134th westbound without a stoplight? I believe John Blumenkamp can also answer this.
So, I mean, all off ramps usually converge to a signal, excluding like a free right. We will determine, like, if a free right for an off ramp is needed based on traffic modeling. But that is an option that we're looking at. I don't know if that's exactly what that person's asking. Tony, I believe, or which question is that? But if that's not, feel free to type some clarifying questions, I guess. But that's what I took it. John, did you have any other additional insights?
Yeah, I'll just add that as one of the earlier slides showed, we're looking at a tight diamond consideration of SPUI. all those kind of scenarios for like that northbound movement you're asking about to westbound, those are at a stop condition for those kind of interchanges. So similar to the other ones you've seen along Bangerter.
All right, so this next question is also from Jason. This isn't so much a question, but a comment. Adding these freeway style overpasses are making Bangerter much busier and noisier for us, for those of us in the houses near the highway. Can Tyler, are you able to talk about the noise effects of the freeway and possibly how they are increased or not by the freeway?
I'm not as familiar with the after decibel levels of the current interchange projects. One of the positives of these is that without the intersections, which would be the acceleration and deceleration, you should notice a difference in that regard, at least.
Okay. So this next question is from Tony Scanchi. This might be a question for Marwan. When will 4050 West open between 134th South and 126th South? So I'm not sure if that's a question for Marwan or if Brian is able to answer that.
That's actually a Riverton City project, right, Marwan?
That's correct. Yeah, because I'm not sure what the timeline for this. This is a Riverton City.
We'd have to check with the city, but we can check with the city, and if you type your email in there, we can email you the answer.
My latest information with Trace Robinson from the city engineers is sometime this summer. So that's basically the expectation for it. But I don't know when exactly that.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will check with the city on that. So Brian, this is a question from John. What restrictions on traffic impacts during construction will be implemented? The current east-west closures at 126th and 104th are extremely impactful to local residents west of Bangerter.
So the type of closures, I mean, once again, we're early in the process, but I can give a high level of what's been done at past Bangerter projects. So when we take a Bangerter under a side street, it becomes necessary to close, the east-west movements due to safety concerns. Also, it allows for the intersection to be built much quicker. It's kind of a rip the Band-Aid off approach, and also it's also a balance between costs and impacts. So we're consistently trying to optimize that. We do not know the current scope for this location. We do not know if Bangerter will go over or if it will go under 134 South. If it does go under, we anticipate closures similar to at those other intersections. If it goes over, the closures will not be as impactful. However, with construction, there always is, some inconveniences.
Okay, this next question is a design question from Tony Scanchi. I believe John can, if you're able to pick this up. I have a business on 40th West and 134th South. Are there any plans to widen 134th that would affect our office location?
Yeah, as we look at our concepts, we're looking to accommodate the interchange to fit with what 134th width is today. Now, the city could have plans in the future for widening that could impact businesses, but we'll research that to make sure we understand what city's plans for the future entail. I don't know if Marwan has anything to add to that.
Well, we need first to know the limits of the impacts, and I'm not sure where exactly the location of your business at the 134. Are you on the east side or west side?
They're not able to respond. So right now we're developing concepts, and we can't say if something will be impacted or not impacted for sure. I would take a second look at that study area. That will give you an idea of where the areas we're looking at.
Okay. This next one is for Tyler. How far will noise walls be added? I don't know how far we are into, I don't believe we're too far into noise, but if you're able to answer that, please.
That really depends on the design that is chosen in the end. We usually look at noise walls up to where the construction takes place, where the impacts will change, and evaluate them at that point.
All right. This next question is for Brian. This is regarding detours. Are there any anticipated detours for this project?
So the construction for this project is scheduled in 2023. We're just starting the process to determine the scope. So we do not have any established detours or established construction limitations at this time. We're still developing different concepts.
All right, thank you. So the next one is a design question. Where can the audiences go to see graphics of the different setup options? I believe they're referring to the SPUI options or the diamond interchange options.
So I can answer that. When we release the draft state environmental study, it will have figures of all the different options and screening criteria. That's the process that Tyler went through earlier, where we establish project goals and we screen out different alternatives based on those project goals and associated impacts to the build and human environment, natural environment. So you'll see those later this year at the public open house, which is scheduled to be early 2022.
Some of the examples of those would be things like the other interchanges that we have up and down Bangerter are SPUI type, where diamond interchanges may be something more in the rural I-15 interchanges that you might notice where you have stop signs or lights on the exits. Is that right, Brian?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so the next one is for Marwan. Will the 126th project be complete before 134th begins? And if you could perhaps just kind of explain how the Bangerter projects are scheduled out and how they're determined.
For sure, 126 and an interchange on Bangerter will be done before, as Brian mentioned, the construction for the 134 is not scheduled to start till 2023. Right now, the current Bangerter 3 projects, 126, 104 South, and 62nd South will be completed by the end of the year.
All right. We got a question here from Heather Mickelson. Brian, if you could answer this. It is common to see dead wildlife on Bangerter, especially on the south end of the valley. The wildlife has been hit and killed by traffic on Bangerter. Does the environmental study consider a mechanism to allow wildlife to cross Bangerter? For example, there is an overpass with fencing to control wildlife crossings on I-80 near Park City.
First of all, thank you for this comment, Heather. I'm not aware of this, and this is something that we'll have to look into. So currently there's no plans, but we will take this comment and we will research it more and get back with you. Tyler or Naomi, do you have anything to add to that?
No, there has been wildlife on Bangerter. I've seen it as I've driven it. The fencing that we currently have for noise helps a bit to keep them out. A lot of the time, there's not much that we can do to force them all off of the highway. But we're always looking at opportunities to be able to incorporate wildlife mitigation, both for the wildlife and for motorists. So we'll definitely look into this.
Yeah, I'll just add that Udot does pay attention to where we have what we call wildlife hotspots or wildlife vehicle collision hotspots. And that does tend to be where we prioritize these types of improvements. To my knowledge, Bangerter is not one of those, but that's certainly something that we will look at and evaluate as part of the environmental study.
Okay, was there anybody else who would like to respond to the wildlife question? Great. This next one is more a question about the process. Will there be another open house after design options have been developed further? And I believe this would be a question for Brian. And if you could describe the SES process and any other opportunities that stakeholders might have to add some input.
Yes, so there will be an opportunity to look at the preferred design at what we call a formal public hearing before we finalize the SES. We like to present the SES to the public. That will be this January, February timeframe. We'll release the draft SES, which will show the preferred design along with all the different alternatives we analyze. We'll collect comments from the public, and we'll take that and we'll evaluate it and determine if we need to make any alterations to our preferred alternative, and then we'll finalize the SES. So you will have an opportunity. I believe it's a 30-day formal public comment period, along with another public hearing. We'll have one online and in person. Once again, that'll be this January, February-ish. So right now we're just wanting to get information about the community to make sure we approach our concepts with the most knowledge we can.
Okay. We've got a question here from Scott. This is a right-of-way question. Give me just a moment. This is a right-of-way question. I believe, Brian, if you are able to answer it. Are there any design concepts where property or pieces of property not currently owned by UDOT intends to be taken?
That's a large part of the environmental process, is going through and identifying those impacts and disclosing those impacts to the public. We fully anticipate there will be impacts to right-of-way that is outside of UDOT's current right-of-way. We do not know what those impacts currently are, but that will be disclosed later on in the process.
Okay. So this is a design question. I believe, John, if you're able to answer this, can you describe positives and negatives of Bangerter going over versus going under 134th?
Sure. As you know, both options that you've seen them on Bangerter, other interchanges that haven't been built. A lot of the positive and negatives come in the design, the cost, constructability. So there's many variables. For instance, like a street like 134th has a lot of utilities underground. So going under, there's a lot of coordination, design work on that. So there's a lot of things to evaluate. So we'll look at all that in the design and evaluate and see what we can come up with as the best option. So in terms of a user or a driver, you kind of have the same experience if you're on Bangerter, whether you go over or under, but it really is in the construction, the cost, and complexity of building it. So
just add, a large part in determining that scope is coordinating with the city and working with the city to determine how we can move forward. And so that is something we're currently in discussions with Riverton, is over or under preferred, and how that, as John mentioned, there's a significant cost difference between the two alternatives. So.
Okay. Brian, this is a good question from Kyle Coles. There are major power lines near the interchange. Will this project be relocating those power lines or building around them?
So we're currently evaluating the different designs. Ideally, it's always better to, impact less, right? So, it would be nice to not impact them and not have to relocate them, as that would be a significant cost. But we're currently evaluating what is needed in terms of future growth or footprint to accommodate future growth. As mentioned, we're designing this for 2050. We want to make sure we get it right.
Okay. Ryan, we had a comment earlier about the pedestrian crossing. How are pedestrians being considered as part of this study? And what are the plans for the pedestrian bridge?
Thank you. So we really value all different modes at Udot. Naturally, we focus a lot on vehicle transportation. However, pedestrian mobility is also very important. And that's something we really want to hear back from the public on. We did some traffic counts on the structure crossing Bangerter at 134 South, and it wasn't being widely used as much as other pedestrian structures. So we'd like some feedback, determine if it would be the most value there. We also have been in discussions with the city and the school district, and think it might be of good use to put on 134th South near the school there. Also in conjunction with the new road that they're building in the area. So we'd love to hear back and hear what the public thinks about options for that structure. Does anyone have anything to add on that from the panelists?
Okay. So here's a question. This one is more for public involvement. How can I provide input? How can one go about leaving a public comment? Brian, you can also answer this if you are able to.
Yeah. So what I typically like to do, I do Google Bangerter Highway, and I find the Udot Bangerter Highway site. And that is a one-stop shop for all things Bangerter Highway. It has the phone number for construction and for the environmental study. So they're all the same information, same hotline, same email. There's also social media, mail. I believe do we have a slide on here that shows the contact information?
There we are.
Yeah, so this has the hotline, the email, the website, and even the mail. Once again, we want to hear your feedback, your initial comments, so please submit.
Okay, we have a question here from Heather. This question, it would be good for John and Brian. Will the proposed plan allow for bikes on 134th to travel through the interchange?
Yeah, Brian, I can address that. As part of our design and efforts, we'll be looking at what the city has planned for bike lanes on roads. So we'll be looking at their information on 134th and seeing if there's bike lanes coming from the east and to the west, and implement what the city has planned as best we can with our design.
Yeah, and I believe the RTP, I'm not 100% sure, the Region Transportation Plan might have bike lanes on here. Our cross section will typically, with the length of our bridges, that typically accommodate bike lanes through there, right, John?
Correct.
So.
Okay. Here's a question for Brian. How far east of Bangerter will you make improvements?
So we showed a project area earlier. We really tried to limit the impacts to the Bangerter area in order to contain the project. So this slide shows the study area. We're evaluating impacts that far east. However, I don't expect impacts or construction to go that far. So this will not be a significant effort along 134 South. It will be mostly concentrated at Bangerter 134 South intersection, similar to what you've seen at other Bangerter locations. You can jump on Google Earth or Google Maps and take a look at the other Bangerter locations, help you get a sense of what has been done in the past.
Okay, Brian, we have a traffic question here. Almost every evening, westbound traffic backs up on 134th east of this future interchange. Will the design options consider ways to improve the westbound flow of 134th trying to cross Bangerter? I feel like if there is still a light at this location, it will not ease the westbound traffic.
Yeah, so there's a lot of development, right, going out west of this location. Ivan, Ivan is with our traffic group. He is the one looking at that. And do you want to take a shot at answering how a potential interchange here will help westbound traffic?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there will still be a light that would stop westbound traffic. Just the simple fact of removing all of that north-south traffic on Bangerter from the intersection, putting them on the bridge, will free up a lot of the green time in the traffic signal for the east-west traffic. So if you consider the signal timing is kind of a pie and there's only so many slices to go around, right now a lot of time is given for those north-south through movements. If those are removed and we don't need to give them any green time, the slices for all the other movements will get much larger, including for the westbound through. And so, our initial analyses are showing that we'll see substantial benefits really for the entire intersection, regardless of which approach you're on, due to a freeway style interchange here.
Okay. Tyler, this is an environmental question, I believe. What is going to happen to Rose Creek?
That's a great question. We don't exactly know right now. That'll depend on the design. It is part of the environmental study. All water resources are included in that. So we will be looking at it, but we don't know quite yet.
I'll just add that Rose Creek is a Salt Lake County flood control. It's also part of the FEMA mapping system. So we'll maintain positive drainage throughout the project if it is impacted, and make sure that we obtain the proper permits as necessary when the construction starts.
Okay. Question for Brian. Are public comments actually used or considered? We also received an additional comment from Kyle. As feedback, I think Udot did a great job at 114th. Please mimic that at 134th South. If you could elaborate on the importance of the public comments, are they actually considered, and how are they considered in this process?
Yes, I highly value the public comments, and we'll go through and personally read each one of them. It is very important. I mean, we work for the people of this great state, and we value their input and really take time to ensure that we're spending tax dollars appropriately. So it's great to hear that from Kyle that they really liked 114 South. And we'll take that and work with Riverton City to come up with a good solution here at 134 South.
I might add that with that 114th South, we did receive a lot of public comments that helped to direct the design on that one. So it is very important.
I'm gonna add to that, even kind of during the 104 South environmental, we received several comments from the public to mimic 104 South, similar to 114 South, which actually caused for the department to do a reevaluation of the SCS. Similar fashion, of course, we did a reevaluation, of course, at the 62nd due to the public comments. As Brian mentioned, we take the public comments kind of very seriously.
All right, thank you. This question is probably best for Marwan as it's about the current project. In the meantime, John is saying, can the signals along 134th South be evaluated to optimize east-west traffic? Way too much emphasis on Mountain View right now, especially during 126th South construction.
For sure, yeah. For example, kind of when we did the Bangerter 4 interchanges, the previous projects, we after the completion of the project, we reanalyzed the east-west movements. So we were able to adjust some of the traffic signal timing for the east-west movement. And we've seen tremendous improvement, even as far as the level of service from the traffic for the east-west movement on all the other kind of Bangerter interchanges that were completed. And we're expecting similar results kind of for the current Bangerter 3 projects. As Ivan mentioned earlier, kind of there's so much that you can give to that kind of a piece of pie, kind of, right? You know, so on Bangerter. So as soon as we have the mainline Bangerter eliminated from that pie, then there's quite a bit of the timing that is given to the east-west movement. And we've seen tremendous improvement through the east-west mobility, especially to the close proximity to the Mountain View corridor, kind of the connectivity. So after the project is done, we reanalyze the signal timings, not only in Bangerter, but also kind of to the adjacent intersections to make sure that they're in sync.
All right, I believe Ivan had something, a note to add to that as well. Ivan?
Yeah, I would just mention that 134 South is not a state road, so Udot does not do the signal timing there. That's, I think the cities contract that out with Salt Lake County, but that's a good comment as far as timing. Well, I guess Mountain View actually is a state road, so that the Mountain View portion would be Udot, but the overall east-west is more of a county thing, but that's a good comment. And I think we can pass that along to both the Udot signal people as well as the county signal people and see whether they agree that there's some opportunity to prioritize east-west a little bit during this. Well, 126 is under construction.
Great. This question is for Brian. What other intersections are being studied? Could you describe what other intersections are being studied and the prioritization process?
Yes. So in addition to 134 South, which is funded for construction in 2023, 47th South and 98th South are also funded for construction in 2023. We're also completing state environmental studies, and we'll be having similar meetings for those intersections in the following weeks. 41st to California is funded for construction in 2028, and that environmental process will follow the completion of the environmental documents that I just mentioned. In addition, we're looking at 2700 West, which is not yet funded for construction, but we'll be completing an environmental document soon for that location, which is obviously adjacent to this intersection, which will be of interest, I imagine, to some people attending this meeting. So I encourage you to also jump on that Bangerter website and sign up for updates for any of those intersections that you're interested in learning more about or being a part of.
Okay. This next question, if Brian could answer it, this is from Daniel McKay. Will the new intersection at 134th South require taking any additional right of way from neighboring properties? And if we could describe the right of way process.
Yes, so we're currently evaluating what's needed. Ivan is helping with understanding the traffic needs, and those traffic needs really drive the footprint of the interchange that we construct. In past Bangerter projects, there has been significant right-of-way or right-of-way impacts, and I do anticipate there will be also right-of-way impacts with this project. We do not yet know what right-of-way impacts there are, however. And as we move further through the process, we'll have neighborhood meetings where we'll meet with affected property owners and we'll review the right-of-way process with them. Those will also be disclosed at public hearing, and there'll be a lot more to come as we move through the process. I guess anyone have anything to add on that?
Yeah, this is Eric Lyon. I work in the right-of-way division. When there is properties that are identified as needing to be acquired for additional right-of-way, there is a very lengthy legal process in which we follow the federal and state regulations related to appraising the property and making an offer and negotiations related to that. And we can outline that again, as Brian has indicated, in further meetings with more detail.
All right. We have a design question. If John is able to answer that, please describe what a grade separated interchange is.
Sure. Grade separated simply means two crossing roads that intersect today. We're looking at separating that. So one of the roads crosses over the other or under the other. This is common on, like railroads, for example, are grade separated many times, where they'll go over the road instead of having a crossing. So we're doing that here. Right now we're at an intersection, but we're looking to make this an interchange and therefore grade separated, with one of the roads going over the other.
Okay, question for Brian. When is construction anticipated to begin on this interchange? And I believe we can also ask for 98th and 47th.
Construction is anticipated to start in 2023 with right-of-way acquisition to start after the completion of this environmental document, which is early 2022.
Okay, this is a design environmental question. Brian, if you could answer this. Won't these interchanges increase traffic on Bangerter? Is there an effect on traffic increasing on Bangerter and the environmental effect on that?
If I could answer, I see there's one here from an open question from Daniel McKay. Is that I'm going to jump to that one first. Is that okay?
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
He's asking, has a decision been made on whether Bangerter will go under 134th or over 134th? The answer is no. We're currently evaluating the different impacts associated with each alternative. As discussed earlier, 134th has a lot of utilities in it. There's a high pressure gas line. There's various water lines. I can't remember them all the top of my head, but we're evaluating the cost difference for each alternative, and we're going to work closely with the city and stakeholders to help determine the preferred alternative that and move that forward. So we have not answered that question yet, but it is on our radar, and we are working forward to define that scope.
Okay. time is 6:55. That is the time is 6:55. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening for the Bangerter Highway and 134th South State Environmental Study online public meeting. We appreciate your time and feedback. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us via these channels at any time, and make sure to submit your public comments by July 28th. This meeting recording will be posted to the study website tomorrow for review to share with your friends and neighbors. As a reminder, we do have an in-person open house tomorrow night at South Hills Middle School. If you have any additional questions or would like to meet the study team, we'll be there from 6 to 7:30 p.m. All right, have a good evening.